we cross over to the public forum on monetization of our royal minerals from the Easter Conference Hall at the University of Ghana. Many thanks, and I do hope that you enjoy this particular session.
Powers of the fund, among the important one is MIF has been clothed with power to use this resource to create extra income for the state. And how do we do so? It is through this monetization that is in a very transparent and acceptable and responsible manner. So through these powers, MIF was able to create what we call a JAPA, to enable us to enter other stock exchange markets to generate further income for the state. And if you look at the act, of all the revenues collected, 20% of this 100% is not part of this JAPA transaction. That is a JAPA which is 100% owned by the people of Ghana. It is 80% of this that will be going into the JAPA transaction. The 20% will be ceded to that of the Mineral Development Fund. That is, it's not part of the transaction with regard to. So I just want to make the picture clear that first 20% of all the royalties collected, 20% will be going to the Mineral Development Fund, and this will be paid out to the various agencies like the STU and various schemes and mineral, Mencom and whatnot. That's where they derive their money. And of this money, that is 80% left, MIF will be owing 51% of this. So it's only 49% that is will be sold at the external market. When Parliament passed this law, subsequently there was the need to pass other subsequent acts, which will make the MIF to be able to stand on its own and progress further and achieve the goals envisaged under the Act. So this led to the subsequent passage of other ancillary agreements like investment fund, relationship agreement, and whatnot by the Parliament of Ghana in the late, that is somewhere around September of last year. So MIF is on the path to achieve the objectives envisaged under the Act. And one thing I want to remark, as His Excellency the President, during the inauguration of MIF, said that it is a sad chapter that this country will be in this vocation for over 300 to 400 years. But we own the gold, but it appears we don't own it. Why am I saying so? Look at other nations like South Africa, other neighboring West African nations. The gold in these countries are indigenously owned. Just to bring your attention that the recently millionaire, is even almost a billionaire, who has been elected as CAF president in the person of Mr. Masope. I think anybody who knows him, he is one of the indigenous Africans who own a large chunk of gold in South Africa. And the major benefit of this nation owning it is that when these monies from gold go outside, it comes back to the nation because it is indigenously owned. So, per this very act, one of the objectives of we of the MIF, and going by the wisdom words of His Excellency the President, that Ghana has reached a stage that there must be the need to encourage indigenous investment in this area. Because in Ghana, we've been doing well everywhere, but it appears our gold are all foreign owned. And also, just to clear misconception regards to, we have only 16 mining companies that will be part of this JAPA concept. It's not all the mining companies in the country. And also, concluding, Ghana continues to sit on gold, and we continue to sit on money, because apart from the gold, we have other minerals like the quarries, sandstone, manganese, and others, of which we of the MIF are working seriously around the clock to see how we can prepare and push this one for make the nation achieve its major objectives. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for the Chief Executive. Today's event is about people with the know-how. It's about technocrats. It's about people who have experience with the conversation and how to do it. So this is about the Minerals Income Investment Fund. Yes, and the Chief Executive alluded to the Ejapa deal. Today's conversation is much bigger than the Ejapa deal. It's about the entire architectural framework that we should work with. And that's why it gives me great pleasure to bring to the mic our next speaker. But even before I do that, let me introduce some very important people here. I'd like to start off with the Honorable Deputy Minister Designate for Lands and Natural Resources. A thunderous round of applause for the Honorable George Mreko Duka. And Honorable George Mreko Duka is also the chairman of the Mineral Incomes Investment Fund. So here he wears two hats. And if I was wearing those two hats, I would say another round of applause for me. Thank you very much. Now, as I intimated earlier, this event is live everywhere on planet Earth. It's going through GTV, Joy News, TV3, Net2 TV, City TV, Asasi Radio, MX24, and it's on the Facebook page of the Ministry of Information. I'm sure if you were to look on Facebook as well, there'll be countless bloggers who are also streaming it live. And remember, you can join in the conversation. If you have a pressing view or a question about how we can monetize our incomes from royalties, kindly send it to us via WhatsApp. And this is 055-148-3158. So WhatsApp line is 055-148-3158. So I said those who are owning the conversation today are some stalwarts. If you were in Chi, we will say some ekukudam who have knowledge of the deal, and they'll be sharing their knowledge with us. So let me first introduce to you Mr. Kwame Atah Mensah. Because we're in Legon, we have to say these things, right? Because Kwame Atah Mensah is a resource governance expert. But he's a product of the Oxford Blavatnik School. So he went to Oxford, and he went to Paris School of Mines, and he's been doing this job for 25 years. So if there's anybody who can speak to these issues, he is on the stage today. And please put your hands together for Kwame Atah Mensah. Kwame, let's see you. Kwame, let's see you. Don't be so modest. Thank you. Kindly sit down. Sorry, Kwabena Atah Mensah, not Kwame. Kwabena Atah Mensah. Kwabena, please forgive me. Kwabena Atah Mensah. So a round of applause for Kwabena. Now, joining us by Zoom, because it is possible, and today we live in this incredible technological era, is a man who is really distinguished in his work. His name is Hene Eku Kwapon. Now, Hene wears so many hats. I may bore you if I went through all of it. Safe to say that he was at MIT, he was at Columbia, is a former vice president of GE Capital and Deutsche Bank. He works at, it's just too many things. Worked on Wall Street. So Hene is joining us. Hene, you're in New York, I believe. If you can hear us, yeah. Can we hear Hene? So a round of applause for Hene. Hene, allow us to give you a round of applause. Yeah, and Hene is also at the CDD, incredible guy, and he'll be sharing his view on how we undertake this enormous project for the benefit of Ghana. But here today, it gives me great delight to bring to the mic our principal presenter today. He's worked in structured finance and intermediaries for over 15 years. He's been involved with many of the things that Ghana has done. He has close knowledge of how to monetize resources, and therefore permits me to bring to the mic Dr. Carl Odami Genti, and he's going to be our main presenter for today. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
You've got 30 minutes to bring us to your incredible mind and what you believe we should be doing. Another round of applause for Carl.
Thank you very much. Hi, how are we? How are we doing? Right. So again, it's great privilege to be here this afternoon, and good afternoon, everyone. Those who are watching us, it's good to be at your premise today. Let me say a big thank you to the Minerals Investment and Income Fund, and of course, the Ministry of Information for organizing this lecture. I mean, these are the sort of things we are looking out for in this country, where we will all come together, dialogue, look at solutions, and how best we can move this country forward. So thank you very much for organizing this event. And also, let me take this opportunity to wish everyone happy May Day. Workers' Day today is Workers' Day for us, and I believe those who are watching on radio, who are listening to us on radio, watching on TV, and even on Facebook, it's good to come your way again. In fact, I'm really honored to be part of this discussion, which has gone on for some time. But indeed, today we are here to look at how best we can address all the issues. So, in brief, we'll go through my slide, and let me be quick to mention that the views I express here are my personal views and does not really reflect the institution I work for. So these are my personal views. Right. So in today's presentation, I'll look at global outlook, how global outlook looks like, trends, concept, how mineral investment and royalties even outside is being handled, and also give some recommendations. And I believe we are here to provoke ourselves. How can we move this country forward? So that will be our key focus for today. So globally, I mean, facts and figures are there. They don't lie. IMF is projecting that global growth is around 6%. As we speak, the vaccine about 1.13 billion has been doses has been administered worldwide, and also about 3.2 people have died out of COVID. So in fact, COVID is here with us and we cannot do away with it. But in the midst of all this, there's still prospect for stronger and economic recovery. Emerging fiscal stimulus packages from government are giving all over stimulus packages to help countries come out from this situation we find ourselves in. There are also worrying signs that the gap between economies might increase. That's to say that the rich will be rich and the poor will be poor. But in times like this, we are all looking at how best, even in this pandemic, we'll be able to come out of it successfully. Now, from a global trend, in terms of how gold is performing, I mean, we all know gold as a safe haven benefited immensely from the pandemic in 2020. And this was really sustained by continual monetary easing by major central banks. However, in 2021, gold prices are expected to sort of reduce to about $1,740 and about from $1,793 in 2020. So it tells you that globally, gold prices are taking shape, and it's important that as we are having this discussion, we put that into perspective. I mean, we have also seen a sharp rise in U.S. interest rate around 0.2 to 0.25, which is giving a stronger dollar weight on the gold recently. But a rebound back economic activity and a lower gold price have provided opportunities for consumers and strategic investors like us. So really, there's a lot at stake on the global front where gold prices are trading and what is required from us. But it's important to know that spot prices for gold in 2020, gold prices were peaked around 1,009 thereabout, which tells you that is the highest in history. Gold prices moving up to 1,009 in 2020 was highest in history. That really presents opportunity for us as a country. But the question we want to ask ourselves today is that, have we taken advantage of all the opportunities we see? Today in Ghana, gold mining is dated back in pre-colonial era, and it has been the mainstay for the lives of Asantis, the Denchra, Wassa, Akan, and other state economies. In fact, since gold mining in Ghana has evolved in major industries, contributing about 5.5% of GDP. So we are so much resource with gold that it's contributing that much to us as a country. When you go to Obuasi today, when you go to Takwa, Pristia, Pifu Praso, Ahanta, and the likes, gold is in abundance. But the question is, how have we been able to take advantage of all the mineral resources we have to get? Last week, I was in Obuasi for some event, and when you get to Obuasi, it's just Obuasi as you see it. The question is, have we been able to leverage on the gold we mined in Obuasi and capitalize on it to develop the country? It's a question we all must answer. So over time, various major mining companies have been set up in Ghana and supporting with the developmental agenda. The last time I checked, we have about 23 mining companies. The key 6 of them being Anglo Gold, Ashanti, Asanko Gold, Goldfields, Chirano, Golden Star, Pesos Mining, and the rest. And out of these 23 mining companies, just 3 of them contribute about 53% of the revenue we have in Ghana. So it tells you that, and the painful aspect of this is that all these mining companies are foreign-based. So some are from US, some are from Canada, Australia, South Africa, and the likes. All are foreign-based. We don't have today a local mining company. We can say that this mining company is for Ghana, and for that matter, we can be so much confident about. And this is because mining is capital intensive. You need a lot of resources to put up a mining. But all the mining companies we see today are foreign-based. So today we are here to provoke ourselves. We are here to have the discussion, the dialogue, devoid of any other things you may think of. But how can we move this country forward in terms of leveraging on the resources we have to support our country? Now, and this is evidence, the names I mentioned is evidence on the impact it has had a couple of years on the economy. Today, the mineral royalties from 2007 was about 40.8 million, the mineral royalties we have as a country. In 2010, it rose to 144 million cedis. In 2014, it rose to 470 million. In 2018, it was 705.26 million. And in 2020, the mineral royalties in the country was just 1 billion. So look at all the mining companies and the mineral royalties which comes to us as a country. Is it not a time for us to start the conversation? Is it not a time for us to have those thought-provoking discussions to see how best we can move this country forward? Again, from 1990 to 2019, total gold production has moved from 946 per ounce to 4.792.29 per ounce in 2019. So gold production is on the rise. But then, how have we been able to stand and how have we been able to take advantage of all the gold production which is ongoing in Ghana? This is why we have to have the discussion. This is why we have to start the conversation and see how best we can take this nation forward. But the good thing is that South Africa has been in the business for only God knows how long. But today, in 2019, Ghana has overtaken South Africa in terms of gold mines. And I think it's a good development for us. If for all the years from only God knows how long we've been trailing behind South Africa, in 2019, we have been able to take the lead and supporting our gold industry is something good which we think we should be proud of. in other countries, comparing to the likes of Sudan, they produce about 76, Mali 71, Burkina Faso 62, Tanzania 48, DR Congo 52, Zimbabwe 38.7, Ivory Coast 41.9. So Ghana as a gold producing country, this is the time we have to have those discussions which will move the nation forward, and this will help us to put our resources into good use. So, but the point is that the nation has not been able to fully benefit from the gold as expected due to a number of reasons, which I'm sure viewers watching, those listening to us on Facebook, you know what the answers may be. But more importantly, I believe that it's because of our inability to track our gold resources. Our oil revenues are being tracked well and utilization is on track. But the question is, on gold resources, have we been able to track them as expected? It's something we have to address. Again, our inability to use gold resources to leverage on additional resources to develop. We have not been able to do that. These are key questions we must address. International gold companies extract value from Ghana's resources, and there has been limited reinvestment in the gold sector. As I mentioned, about all the mining companies are from outside. Majority of them are from outside. Canada, Australia, US, and the likes. Have we been able to redevelop the gold that they took away? When these gold mines are depleted, the question is that, will Ghana be able to live with any royalty resources and no income? Ghana will be left with no royalties, no income, and no resources. So this is why it's important we have the conversation on mineral royalty. Is it good for Ghana? The question is, the answer is all of us to answer. The question is for all of us to answer. Is it good for Ghana? Is something we have to look at. Furthermore, even though we have been mining for over 100 years, and as my colleague said, we have been mining in Ghana only God knows how long. The painful thing is that our mineral royalties contribute less than 1% of total revenue and grant. The whole mining in Ghana, our mineral royalties is less than 1%. So, for example, in 2011, our total revenue and grants was about 12.6, and out of that, our mineral royalties was just 222 million. In 2019, being more recent, our total revenue and grant, that's excluding mineral royalty, was 52.3 million. And out of this, our mineral royalties were just 1 million. So you see, we as a country have to really do something about this. It's not a time to say this person has done this or this person has done that, but what's the way forward in terms of managing our royalties to an acceptable level where we'll be able to develop the country? I think it's very important we discuss that. And that brings me to my next topic, which is the concept of monetization. And that is why we are here today. Concept of monetization. I mean, the term monetization may look so big to a lot of people, but in real sense, it's not anything so big. A gold royalty is just a contract that gives the owner, i.e. the gold royalty company, the right to a percentage of gold production or revenue in exchange for an upfront payment. And that's all what mineral royalties is about, being monetizing it. So gold royalty companies use this contract as a way to finance mining companies in need of capital. Today, if a mining company wants to set up, they have to go to the bank to borrow. And because of single borrowing limits for some of the banks, they will not be able to raise that needed funding to set up the capital the mining companies will need. At best case, the banks will say that let's syndicate and raise the funds for the mining company. But when we have a mineral royalty company in place, this is where we'll be able to say all the mineral royalties we have in this fund, let's leverage on it and support our local mining. Again, we have not seen that our local mining sector is developing. It needs investment, but it is not there today as we speak. So since royalties typically covers the life of the mine, gold royalties benefit from exploration outside. That may extend the life of the mine, and that increases the amount of revenue we need. So the concept of monetization is really good. I mean, I speak from very objective view. Whether you have a different view, that is fine. But to me, looking at the benefits thereof is what is important to all of us. But there are two types of royalties, where we have the net smelter returns royalty, where in this case, the agreement where the companies agree to pay the royalty on a percentage of the revenue, less the financing cost. So we can decide to look at the net smelter returns, where we pay a percentage, or we can also decide that we look at the net profit interest royalty, and with this, the agreement that allows the royalty owner a percentage of the profit from the mines. So after the mines declares profit, an agreement can be struck to say this is what belongs to the royalty company. So in today's discussion, there are a few things I want us to look at. I mean, if we are serious about doing mineral royalties and setting up, these are things we have to consider, and these are areas which is very critical for us to develop. One, we must review the scope of all agreements. I mean, when Japan came, there were a lot of discussions around it, and I totally agree. If people don't have much information, they may have sentiments they may express, and that is why today we are having the discussion, a forum where we can discuss the pros and cons of setting up a mineral royalty company to support this. Again, we have to consider safeguarding against the risks of undervaluation. This is something a lot have spoken about, but again, I'll leave it for us to discuss. How are we going to do the valuation in terms of the concessions that has been given? It's very important. We have to also look at how we can disclose assumptions underlying the valuation. So when we are discussing like this, people have resentment, people want to understand what actually went into the valuation of the royalties. Whether it's small, whether it's big, we have to have those holistic discussions. And of course, whatever monies that will be received, we should ensure it's being put into good use so that it can be tracked at any given level. And that is very important for us to consider if we are trying to monetize our royalty. It's also important that we build consensus. And the consensus is what we are doing today, that, look, we can all discuss what's the good way forward. How can we all come together and ensure that the monies that are going to be raised in this monetization is being put into good use? Importantly, things are changing. The world has changed and has become very sophisticated. So we have to also change the things we do. We have been mining in Ghana for more than 100 years. More than 100 years. But what do we have to prove? We can't continue to do the same things over and over and expect a different results. We have to challenge ourselves and do something new. So monetizing a portion of our future gold royalties prudently reduces Ghana's heavy budgetary risks. And Kojo mentioned that earlier. It will help all of us. We have to do a lot of transactions to ensure we support our budget. But if we have these royalties in place with allocation or a portion into this fund, it will help all of us. Again, to sum up, the key recommendations I'm giving out is that a lot is at stake for this country in our gold royalties management, and we need to discuss to find the best fit solution for it. There is also the need to address the misconceptions around mineral royalties. A lot of people don't understand it, and that is why today we are all here to brainstorm, why we are all here to discuss how best we can let everybody understand what is this whole concept about mineral royalty. There is also a need to have broader stakeholder engagement. Sometimes it's good today we are having this forum where we can share ideas, where we can all come together and say that this is good for Ghana. And even to the communities. Today you go to a lot of gold mining communities and there's nothing to write home about. They have nothing to prove for. And it's very painful when you see how gold has been mined in several communities for hundreds of years and they don't have anything to prove for. So today, we are here to challenge ourselves. We are here to discuss how best we can leverage on the mines we have, on the gold we have, and make good use of it. Thank you very much, and God bless us all.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Carl. Carl. So that was quite exhaustive there, that we've been mining for so long. We haven't been able to leverage the resources that come from our gold, especially the incomes that come from it. Gold accounts for 5% of our GDP, so that's a lot of money. If the GDP conservatively is $60 billion, gold accounts for 5%. That's $3 billion. So that's no mean money. And that's why today it's important that we have a conversation around this. But joining us on Zoom is Hene Akukwapong, and then Kwabena is also here with us. Hene, you may have to unmute your mic because the first time we did not hear you. So can you hear us now, Hene? Kindly unmute your mic. We cannot hear a word.
I can hear you now.
Blessings, Hene.
Can you hear me now?
Everybody around the globe can hear you now. Thank you for joining us. What are your thoughts after listening to Carl's presentation? What are the things that occupy the first frames of your mind?
Okay, well, let me begin by thanking you guys for giving me an opportunity to actually be part of this. One of the things that I think we need to do is to take a step back. When I started working for Deutsche Bank on commodities, and specifically doing a lot of structured deals in gold with places like Peru and Mexico, one of the books that my boss gave me to read was a book by a guy called Peter Bernstein. And the book was titled The Story of Gold, with the subtitle of A History of Obsession. And when you read that book, one of the things that you notice is that gold has never really built any country in this world. And because there's an obsession that we all have with this gold that often at times obscures a lot of things that we need to do to actually make it beneficial for the country. The comment that the presenter made, for instance, I think the CEO also made that comment that Ghana is now the leading producer of gold, and we've passed South Africa, right, among African countries, which is great. The problem is that is actually quite a bigger problem, because the only reason why Ghana is now a bigger producer is because two big South African companies are doing more in Ghana. So if you actually take the value that we get per ton of gold as a country, it's actually way down. So all we're doing is we're digging up the gold for others to then basically create value along the whole value chain, all the way to the jewelry and the central bank, bullion, and all that stuff. So we really should try not to be, we sort of have to step away from the obsession and really understand that when it comes to it, we have almost about 1,000 metric tons of gold in the ground. There are almost eight countries that have more than we do. So 50 years from now, those 8 countries include the US, Australia, Canada. And those guys are also the best folks that have organized the biggest companies that are working in our own country. So it's almost as if somebody has left their larger resources to come to your country to take your stuff. So 50 years from now, my biggest concern is if we do not take care, we actually may not have the opportunity to even make money from gold, because others would have monetized it and they would have had still a lot of resources left back in their country to actually put to use however they want. So I think
exactly, Hene. Isn't that why we need to make a stronger and a bolder case for us to monetize. I actually think the research suggests that there's more than 1,000 metric tons we have in the ground, but be that as it may, other countries have more than us. Shouldn't that be the reason we are more intent and deliberate about using what we get now to further create wealth, so that by the time the resource is exhausted, we would have built off that?
Exactly. And you know, the way I will actually like to illustrate it to the public is this. Just imagine we are a family and we've been given a house by our parents, right? We will rent the house out. And whoever rents the house out would say, okay, I'll pay you 1,000 cedis every year for the next 30 years. Well, you can sit and collect 1,000 cedis every year for the next 30 years. And guess what? When Airbnb comes to the town and other people build homes, people will stop renting your home. So the best thing to do is you can actually go to a bank and say, hey, you know what? I have 30 years of 1,000 cedis coming in. Can I get some more money and actually build better homes as we go along and actually be able to expand the money? Because if you sit and just collect, as we're doing right now, you'll be given whatever you have. And the worst part of it is this. 10 years from now, 1987, gold price was $300 and it shot up by the end of 1990 to about $700. And we all thought, oh, let's make money. About another 10 years later, it was back down to 250. And a lot of gold companies went bankrupt. About 50 gold companies got reduced to about 12. And our own Ashanti was like number 12, worth about $430 million. So 50 years from now, you know, with the whole world changing, you know, we cannot just sit and collect. If we sit and collect, you know, in Ghana right now, there is no gold industry in terms of even the jewelry shops, right? The local companies are not well resourced. You know, so all these local companies, if I've gone and seen some of them, they're using medieval methods to actually do, even though we've licensed them, and they have no other capital. Goldfields last year did a royalty deal off of its revenue coming out of Ghana and to supplement its investment in Peru. And so we have to think seriously about doing something. You know, but we just can't be rent collectors. If you're a rent collector, someday your house is going to fall.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, what baffles me, and I want you to hold your thoughts and I'll come to you in a bit. What baffles me is, why have we been sitting and collecting all this while when there are these incredible ideas globally that people have been leveraging and making so much money? Why have we been rent collectors all this while? And I want you to marinate on that thought for a while. Because I'll come back to you. I've got resource governance expert Kwabena Ataniwa here with me. Kwabena, so you heard what Carl said, that the time has come for us to do this. And Kwabena alludes to the fact that we can't forever be rent collectors. The question is, why have we been stuck in this rut for so long? And your general thoughts also on Carl's presentation.
Okay, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, and happy May Day to all of you out there. And
kindly speak up for us a little bit.
Yes,
thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon to all. Yeah, so Carl's presentation basically summarized, you know, why we have to do monetization. He and you before him stated the case that it's 500 years or more that we've had gold on our shores, that people have mined gold from our shores, but we have nothing to show for it. This has happened basically because, one, due to an asymmetry of knowledge, that is knowledge between the host country and the investors that come in, we end up making not so good deals. So we always start off at a disadvantage, even from the agreement stage. Secondly, we need to make sure that this gold that we're getting out and is being mined out has linkages to the rest of the economy. Because he mentioned that there's a value chain along that is being developed in South Africa. I'll give you one example. If you go to Botswana, they are a diamond-producing country like ours, with just under 5 million people. Sierra Leone, our next-door neighbor, has basically the same geology and kind of amount of gold that Botswana has. But this is what Botswana did. They struck a deal with the BS that only 50% value of the diamonds will go to them, and the rest of it will stay in country. And then they went further and insisted that the diamond is polished, value addition is made to the diamonds in Gaborone, in Botswana. And it has turned their economy around. They were the fastest growing African economy for a long time. This is what we haven't done. How do we get there? How do we monetize our gold such that we can also build a capacity in the local industry, build Ghanaian champions that can add value to our gold in country, and therefore build value?
But are they two separate and distinct ideas? Is monetizing gold not different from building a value chain, or you see an intrinsic connection?
Here it is. Monetizing gold gives you the upfront value, the upfront cash, the upfront funding that we can use to set up what will be required to have the value chain develop effectively and efficiently in Ghana. It's one sure way of getting the funding that we need to build capacity, to build the local content, to build local industry that will add value, apart from what the royalties will fetch us. So yes, I am all for, take the royalties, put it in a monetization policy and in a monetization structure like we want to do, and then from it, we get the funding that we'll need to build the capacity. Basically, we need to build the linkages along the value chain for not gold only, for manganese, and for some of the other minerals that we are mining. I'm glad that the government has taken bold initiative in regard to the other minerals, bauxite and iron ore. That's a game changer for us. If we can do same for gold, as we haven't done in the past 100 years, with this monetization thing, we are going to be still where we are 10 years. I'm
tempted to go off the seams a little bit, even though I want to stay with the discussion. You see, when you say, okay, let's monetize and use the money to build the capacity, people are not so sure. When you say you use the money to build the capacity, you actually get around to doing that. And they may not give you that confidence or vote of confidence to say, okay, because of that, monetize, or because of that, go ahead and monetize. How do we assure the people? If somebody was listening to me in Wenchi today, or somebody was listening to me in Obuasi, how do you assure that person that taking money, monetizing, will duly get into building capacity for the value chain development?
Well, I think that's what gave birth to the MMIF. And it's a very bold initiative that has taken source. It's grounded in a Parliamentary Act 1978. It's been amended in 1024, and it gives the MIF the chance to bring in an SPV that will manage it independently. So for those who are doubting whether this will go what to do, the MIF is the answer. They've been set up and they're being resourced to make sure that they take the resources that will come, the royalties, any other stream that will come from our gold mining, and invested. And through that investment, the growth, the linkages, the growth that we require from this industry will be realized. But if we leave it as it is, and the royalties come trickling in, and there's no central body to manage it and to make sure that it's prudently utilized so that the revenue is spread equitably and on time, we will be where we are now.
So the initial question I actually had two parts. One was Carl's presentation, which you've ably commented on. The second part was, why have we been stuck in the rent collection mode all this while? I mean, since independence. Because basically before independence, when people mined, they took it to their country for the value chain to be developed. But since independence, we've been stuck in this rent collection mode. Why?
Well, I think the answer is in somebody who is bold enough to go through it. I think there's been a first, and you alluded to it, there's been a first attempt by the NDC in 2011, thereabout. The Ejapa deal with MIF was another attempt to do it just last year, 2020. We have, in a learning curve kind of way, learned what we can do and what we can't do with this. It is now the time, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, that it's a Ghana thing. This thing gives Ghana the leverage. It gives Ghana the possibility, the potential to develop an all-rounded gold industry that will give more to us. We have to look at how, if and how this is going to be done going forward. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation about this. There's got to be the need to move beyond the law that we've passed, the opposition and the uncertainties around certain part of it. I think a lot of that is being answered now. We have to move forward. You know.
So we have to move forward. And Hene, stay with me for a bit because I want to be coming to you. Carl, you said in your presentation that we need to review holistically all contracts, right? I'm worried about stability agreements that these mineral companies also have, which is supposed to safeguard against stuff like this. So when you say review holistically all contracts, exactly how do you mean? And how does that positively then affect what we intend to do with the monetization schemes that we are thinking?
Right. I mean, let me say that globally, this mineral royalties is valued about 72 billion. Countries like Norway, Canada are already doing it. So it's not something new. Let's put that on record. Mineral gold monetization is not something new. But it's something new for us here, and that is why there is a bit of uncertainty, mistrust, misconception, and all those things coming in. But the way they are structured has been made possible because all agreements were made open. There were full disclosures. So I believe where we are now, what the onus lies on us to be transparent in terms of what we want to do. I'm into academia. When things are coming for us to look at, we look at it from a very holistic view. We don't take one angle and look at it. So my point is that if there are any agreements surrounding mineral royalties, it should be open and transparent to everybody. Everybody must know what is in it for us, not as if people are trying to hide anything. And I believe when we get to that level, there will be openness and people will appreciate what we are trying to achieve.
So the question I'm asking you really is, so you show up at the door of Anglo Gold Ashanti and you say, hang on, we want to renew our contracts with you and we want to review it. How does that work?
I mean, that's why we have the MIF in place, MIF in place to do that. And it was set up by an act of parliament. They have the powers to go into that space. So they have to lead us. We have to have the conversation, let them know the importance of this to the country. But the rest, in terms of the nitty-gritties of it, we leave it to MIF and, of course, the legal team to support and guide that and provide guidance on it. So I think that's the angle which we should direct, and I'm sure it will help all of us as a country.
Let me go to Hene in New York. So, Hene, you've been listening to us. I asked you a question earlier I wanted you to marinate on, which is, why have we been stuck in this rent place for so long? Now, moving forward, what should we get right? Is it structure? Is it the more ephemeral or soft ones like trust? What should we get right? How do we move this conversation forward for the benefit of Ghana?
Right. So I think let's take a step back to the question of why have we been rent collectors for so long, right? There's a reason why. It's something that for the first time I think we have to have the courage to accept. What it is that countries developed because they build great companies that solve their biggest problems for them. You know, all these countries that actually are very big in gold, what they have is on the private side, they've been able to create the conditions for private side companies to thrive and literally lead the effort as they monetize gold revenue across the globe. So one of the things that has held us back since the days of Champo all the way through the government is that we've never really looked at, we're a very low trust society, and we've never really looked at the private side that we actually need to create companies that literally we can be proud of and let those companies charge. Anglo Gold, Goldfields, all these guys are fully private companies from South Africa who have come and basically roaming across the globe making money. for their country. The same way with Asampa and all these guys from Australia. So what it is that we have to get into our heads that, listen, there's a way you play the game, and you have to have strong chess pieces on the board, which is your own companies. And that is the first thing that we have to start changing, that framework, that it cannot be. Government cannot compete against private, well-endowed companies in gold. We have to step back and say, we don't want to be rent collectors. We want to actually create pieces where we feel comfortable, trust, and we put there. The example that I'll give you is actually the financial sector. The reason why digitization has worked in the financial sector, the government pushing it, is because you have great financial companies in the private sector who actually have taken that and run with it and really, really invested in it. So we have to get to a point where the structure of our gold industry is such that we can create 3 or 5 companies that we can literally resource very well. They will create employment and lead the charge and really give us the pieces on the chess table to actually play. So that's why we haven't really gone anywhere with this rent collection. We have to move beyond and look at the private sector as the engine to actually do that and solve some of this problem.
Yeah, not to distort your thoughts, but we tried. In 2011, we tried to do the gold company. We suspended it. I think that was an admission that we needed something more marauding, something like a juggernaut that could compete, a company that could compete globally. But we suspended it. In 2020, we tried again to set up a structure that would compete like you've mentioned, and again we suspended it. So what's responsible for this?
Right. But here's the thing. Government cannot create the companies. You cannot create, a government cannot say, I'm going to create a company. What it is you put in the policies, the tax policies, the incentives, and we have people who are trying to do local mining. You have to basically put in the incentives for them to actually begin to merge and resource themselves. Ghana government can't create a company. We can create an investment platform like we've created in MIF and use the money to find the right companies to invest in. So I think MIF is a great start, but we have to really think about how do we really use MIF to raise, but to actually look at the private side and say, listen, we need to just have our own pieces on the board, right?
So you agree that, I mean, around the room, I think there's consensus. By all means, we have to monetize. By all means, we have to move away from being rent collectors, right? And I think also that MIF is a great platform. But you think going forward, something like Ejapa, which was a special purpose vehicle, private, owned by MIF, is that not the way to go? Is that not the way to at least get the might of government capital behind?
Okay, yeah, so let me, that's actually a good point. So I did a structure for Peru, right, when I was at Deutsche Bank. The difference between what we're doing now in Japan and what I did in Peru, which I think is the opportunity we have to take in Ghana right now. What we have to take a look at that there are several opportunities within Japan. For example, we have a very low trust society, as I said. So the offshore component, for instance, we should look at it as an opportunity to actually create an offshore in Ghana, in Accra, right, and bring it in Ghana. We can also create a tax regime in Ghana. We don't have to create it somewhere else. So we have to look at the opportunities that actually reinforce trust in our own people and make them feel like, okay, we're doing the right things, right? And then look at the possibility. We don't have to do it all in terms of a securitization. You can do that. There's a whole bunch of structures. But what I'm saying is that before you do all these things, involve some of the private side where you come up with the full strategy, where people have clarity. There's no reason why some of the elements of Japan, it should probably be first listed in Accra, which is fine. If we want to list in London, US, fine. But here's the thing, you can raise capital anywhere. So we have to do some of these things to build the trust and let people know that we can actually bring in the private sector. Because guess what, when the private sector comes in, then you actually expand the problem-solving ability of the whole country, right? And the government can basically say, okay, all right, this is what we're doing transparently and whatnot. If you do a scheme in Ghana where it's an offshore, well, guess what? Goldfields, instead of doing its royalty offshore, they can basically say, oh, Accra is another offshore hub. So I'll do my, and then gradually you create the local conditions for the private side to step in, for the banks to begin to invest along the government and whatnot. So I think Japan is fine. What it is that how do we do it such that it builds trust, right?
Thank you very much. So you think MIF is a great move? It's a great effort, but it's step one. We should even forward integrate to create a larger architecture that we can play in. And some of the opportunities that accrue to the space will include looking at, for example, using that to create or harness an offshore economy or offshore advantage. So other people can even use here as an offshore tax haven. So we need to be creative in the space.
Yeah, exactly. What it is that there are several opportunities that we need to make sure it works. I mean, technical help, technical help is very critical for this thing to be successful. And
exactly.
In that case, that means that you have to do it such that Ghanaians can be attracted back in Ghana to actually help you do this. Right?
Exactly. And I think the government is talking about creating Ghana as a financial hub. So all of these things can come into play, which is really, really exciting. We're taking your questions on WhatsApp, 055-148-3158. And I'm getting questions from New York. I'm getting questions from Saudi Arabia. I'm getting questions from South Africa. So Ghanaians everywhere are tuned into this. And I'll be coming to the questions in a little bit. But Kwabena and Carl, we have all agreed that monetizing is the way to go. And perhaps there should be a little bit more transparency. But the fact that we can mortgage future cash flows today and leverage it is a fantastic opportunity. But then Henny mentioned that we live in a very low trust society. Walk me through why you think not the finance, not the unbelievable advantage of what we can do, but the social opposition is what made Ejapa and Maeve and the gold company in 2011 all fall through. Tell me why you think, apart from finance, those did not succeed. Kwabena, to start with you.
Okay, so champions of resource governance and the industry have mapped all of this out. You need an informed citizenry. You need strong institutions. And then you need a good resource governance. A three-pole thing that will make your mineral sector grow.
So let's work with that. Informed citizenry.
An informed citizenry is what we are missing now. If we can bring that third equation into this, then we have the three poles that will make this thing work.
So over time, we have not had an informed citizenry?
There's been a start. I mean, I must say that there's been a start. And you must agree that 2020 might not have worked because there was a perception that people had not been brought on board. That's what we have to do now. We need to bring people on board, make sure that everybody along the value chain understands that this is something that is going to be good for Ghana. It's the only way we can go. We can't go this way. We've done this for 100 years, 500 years now. It hasn't worked. So yes, let's inform them. Let's bring everybody along. Let the structures be in place. Institutions have been set up. MEF and the Mineral Development Fund are ready to take this thing on board.
So you think we have stronger institutions now?
We have stronger institutions now. We've met that part of it. Okay. I think we need to do the informing.
What about resource governance, the people in the CSOs? These incredible minds who, when they disagree with you, will move heaven and earth to make sure that it doesn't work. I mean, we have to agree at the margins, right? Yeah. And we've always not been able to do that. So walk me through why or how, perhaps now, we can bring the CSOs along or the people in resource governance along. How should we do it?
I think it's a communication thing. We need to communicate what we want to do. They have charters that they are governed by. We need to take at these charters and see where we fit in. They need to understand that if this is the charters they are working with and we are meeting them, we got to come together and make this thing work. They have charters that they are governed by. We should look at, especially we should step back and look at those who have special interest, because some of them do. And we have those who would want to just understand where we are at, want to make sure that there's equilibrium, in both along all stakeholders, and we carry them with us.
Carl, you said transparency and more stakeholder consultation and stakeholder building. Do you think we are at a point now where we can guarantee that transparency and then also that stakeholder building? Where do you think we are at in ticking those boxes?
Well, I believe so, and that's why we're having these conversations today. I may be wrong. Probably in the initial transaction deals, I'm not sure there were bigger stakeholder forums like this where it was discussed. I may be wrong. I don't have all the answers. But I believe now we are all coming to the table, look at the mistakes we made, and we are trying to correct them. What went wrong is what we are trying to resolve now. So going forward, I'm of the view that, look, if we are happy to have those conversations, telling the people what it is, providing clarity, it will help to take away all the ambiguity surrounding all this transaction. But today, if that's not happening, you bring a deal on the table, somebody will say, no, I'm not aware of this. One party will say, I'm not aware of this. So this is a time for us that all the mistakes we made, we want to correct them and move forward in that regard. So that's my personal view in terms of how we can take it forward.
Another issue which really plagued us in the past, how do we track the money? And I want you to share your view on that. So tracking the money is an issue. How do we ensure that the people living in Ofuasia Irebi or living in Akomadan or living in Takrade know that these monies are being tracked and in their interest? Because a lot of opposition that came against something like in Japan, we keep going back to that because that's the more recent one, was how do we track the money? How do we evaluate it? What's the valuation like? How do we track the money? Are you not shortchanging us? Are you not going to mortgage something so big for so small? It's a question around value and the money. How do we address that?
I think that this is where you need the technocrats to come in, the expertise to come in. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, this has been done elsewhere, and for that matter, it's possible we can do it here. In terms of how it was done, they went through the chain, they ensured that all the validations, valuations were done, all the models were run to ensure that nobody is shortchanged. Today, per the last Japan deal, we heard it was valued around 1 billion, where a lot of concerns were raised that, look, this is more than 1 billion, this is about a 3 or 4 billion. So again, in terms of the valuation, you need the expertise to come on board, and that will only help us to get it right. If we don't get it right and we assume that we have it all, and for that matter, we'll go ahead and do what it takes, people will not agree, and I'm sure these are some of the issues why some of the things are failing in the system. Yeah.
Okay, Hene in New York, thank you for staying with us. So Hene, you brought up this question or this concern about low trust, and we see it every day expressed. I wonder if you've thought about it for long, or if you thought about it to the point of actually proffering solutions, because ultimately, the people who represent us in Parliament or on the Minerals Income Investment Fund are people who have responsibility to the people of Ghana, right? So my question will be, how do we ring fence these trust issues and actually make it positive so that people will know that these agents are acting in our interest and avoid the classical agency problem?
Right. So one of the things that I think we all have to recognize is that, where we are as a country, the way I would do it is actually, if you compare our country to a parking lot. I mean, if you go to any parking lot in Accra, you will see that there's a bit of chaotic social organization going on. So we're all trying to figure it out, right? So I think the first thing that we do, which I think one of the folks there actually said of the CSO, he said they have to understand. I think we have to take a step back. Nobody has to understand anything, right? What it is that we who are actually doing this thing, or we want to lead, need to step back and craft a plan. Because once you put a plan and you put the elements of what is it that you're going to do openly there, then the discussion centers around that, right? In the last round that we did, I think what happened is that a lot of stuff were put there hoping that people will have to understand. But that is not how you sort of convince people. What it is that we literally have to come up with a plan for the whole minerals industry, where we are going, the roles, what are some of the objectives, all that stuff, and probably do like maybe a 5 and a 7 year outlook plan. And list clearly the risk. Because the guys that you're competing with, the countries that are here with their companies investing and digging up your gold, they have done the plans already. I worked with Peru. When I left Peru and their structures that we did for them, they actually passed a law where every year the minerals plan for the whole sector gets updated yearly, with budget lines and what towns and whatnot, who's getting how much of that budget and all that stuff. So without the plan like that, then the social disorganization will take over, and then we'll all be talkatives. We'll talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Even simple things like valuation. But I have been in investment banking for almost 20 years. Valuation, they're not dumb. The people on Wall Street and the people who are around who sell stock, they're not dumb people. They've done this forever. So we sit here and we complain and whatnot. That's because we are not putting stuff on paper for ourselves.
Henny, and I don't know whether I'm disagreeing with you. I don't think I am. But if I gave a company to 5 investment analysts, they will give me a different valuation. Each the evaluation may be similar, but they'll be different. In some cases, they'll be wide off the mark, right? So I wonder if...
No, but here's the thing. They'll be off the mark because of their assumptions around risk.
Exactly.
Not the assumptions around the model. Everybody knows the model. We were fighting over models. But it's the risk that we need to be concerned about. The question is, your money is coming in the future. In future, gold may be selling for 600 instead of 2,000.
Exactly.
The question is, how strongly do you believe that you will be able to collect 2,000 in future when 50 years come now?
Yeah.
And I'm saying that, well, guess what? You will not collect 2,000 because there is somebody else with more gold than you. He can sell a lot more and bring the price down. So, my friends, think about the risk, right? But I think we have to really sit in the room and basically say, okay, here is a proposal, a plan, end to end, and then have people have this.
Let's just think about it. Thank you. So let me say a big thank you to our partners, because now we're going to the floor. And when I say the floor, I mean the entire country. If there are questions in the auditorium, I will take it. But there's so many questions flooding our WhatsApp line. So we know this has been grand. GTV, Joy News, TV3, Net2 TV, City TV, Asasi Radio, MX24, and the Facebook page of the Ministry of Information. Wherever you're watching us from, we are grateful that you could join us with your questions. So I'm going to be taking some of the WhatsApp console. And so somebody is asking, and Carl, I think Carl and Kwamna, you may have a go at this. This is Frank Kwegia, and Frank is reaching us from East Legon. So is this similar to the transaction that was contemplated by the previous government in 2011 when they sought to create a company? Would that be equal to what Ejapo was doing? Can you clear it up, or it was for political purposes, Carl? So the politics is never quite far away. So hold on to that. Let me take another question. Godfrey from Ablekuma. Well, you have all spoken nicely, but the veracity in the case here is that our local mining needs more investment in order to improve our minerals royalties. And so so yes, I mean, Carl, the first is, was this just for political purposes? Is the equalization for politics? And then secondly, I think maybe, Kwame, you would take this. It says we need more mining, we need more investments in mining to be able to take it. So Carl, take it away.
I'm not a politician, so I wanted to stay away from anything politics. But see, in the 2011 case, as we discussed offline before coming here, those laws were not there. And for that matter, in terms of the act which was recently passed was not there at that time. So in terms of its implementation, I believe there were shortfalls in the process. And that's the basis for which we have learned our lessons, thinking we could bounce back in 2018 to make it more formidable. That said, I believe it couldn't work out because of reasons best known, which, like I mentioned, staying off politics in this discussion, but looking at it objectively, if we're able to put in place the right structures, if we failed the first attempt in 2011, there's always opportunity to go into 2018, 2021 to restart or renegotiate and discuss again. So for me, I want to believe that it's about the structures which were not there, the laws backing it, and for that reason, it didn't work out. Yeah.
So you reckon that now we can take off? Now we can take off. Okay, significant investments in mining. I mean, you work there.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, I think I need to let the audience know that for every 1,000 exploration projects, only about one of them becomes a real mine.
Wow.
So it should dawn on us that, yes, we need to do a lot more. I mean, we have aging assets in Ghana. Our gold mines
Is this a global stat or is
it's a global stat?
That for every 1,000 exploratory mines, only one?
Maximum two becomes
That's 0.0001%.
Absolutely. And the case for Africa is even worse because only 16% of exploration spend came into Ghana, into Africa. And I think even Burkina Faso was ahead of Ghana in what came in. So we need that funding. We need the extra funding from somewhere that will look again at some of our marginal deposits that we've had that are still sitting there. And that is where, again, this innovative way of raising funds would help a lot. So that we can, and I think there's a spread, there's a bit that goes to the Geological Survey, there's a bit that goes to MAINCOM, so that these agents can be resourced to do some of this background exploration that are required to grow our assets. Otherwise, everything is not sustainable.
So let me ask you, so just explore a little bit, 1 minute. When you say significant investments in mining, where do they go to? What aspects of mining are we talking about?
Well, if the first aspect for a good resource governance is to make sure that you have and know what deposits you have. That's the first part of it. Once you know what deposits you have, the value, you can put a value to it and negotiate better. So if you have to invest along the entire value chain if you want to get it right. You cannot do it only at the upstream level and expect that you get it good downstream. You cannot do it only at downstream level and expect that you get upstream. It has to be along the entire value chain. And the more of these deposits that you find, the more that you're likely to get the revenue stream that will grow the Ejapa and other royalty projects. So we need to get it right, not only in upstream, but downstream and then at the mine.
Yeah, Carl, you have a view?
I just wanted to sort of link how this structure is to other previous transactions that has happened in Ghana here. So when the government wanted to increase education intake and what have you, it set up Get Fund, went to Parliament to get approval for 1.5 billion on a Ghana Education Trust Fund, where 2.5 levy was allocated to raise some money up front. Again, when we're going through the energy sector crisis, ESLA came in to support. So this structure, SPV, is not also new to us here. We have case studies we've done before. Get Fund is on the market to raise bonds to support educational infrastructure. ESLA has been performing very well through an SPV. So for me, once we have the structure right and we're able to ensure controls, documentation, and everything is intact, I believe we can go ahead and provide funding. Now, for these mining companies in Ghana, we are sourcing for upfront cash to support them. We don't have those monies today, and for that reason, we are talking of mineral royalties company to support them. So for me, once we get the structure right, once we get all the nitty-gritties right, we should be able to proceed on this. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Hene, I want to give you the next two questions, and I think they're similar. They're quite long. I think they're from engineers who are in gold, so they need to demonstrate knowledge. So they are quite long, but I'll read them out to you. Good afternoon. I'm Frank Techi, a minerals engineering student at the University of Mines and Technology. Now, Frank says, our presenter should be clear with his figures, whether it's US dollars or Ghana cedis. He thinks it's about time we invested significant amount of money into exploration of other natural resources like diamonds, iron ore, manganese, bauxite, limestone, uranium, we can start with extensive exploration of the 4 diamond ferrous areas in Ghana at the Birim, Bonsa, Dunkwa, Nyamfomine diamond fields in the country. Our geologists will be employed and government will be in the proper direction to indigenize mining in the country. Thank you. That's the first question, the first comment. The second is, good afternoon, Mr. Moderator. On the value chain development and capacity building and reinvestment of the mineral resources, I asked the question, government only owns 10% of mineral contracts in Ghana. And mining companies also have the liberty to pay royalties between 3% to 6%, but oftentimes go for the lower cut. Can we possibly review these 2 elements up? Again, we tend to collapse everything Ghanaian. What is the state of the gold refinery house and glass factory in Takwa? And we talk about reinvestment and capacity building in terms of local companies in the mineral industry in Ghana today. Dennis Inkua Buama Jabeng is a UMAT alumni and he's reaching us from Sefiri also. So I guess the 2, if you put them together, will be saying, how do we get more investments in this? And you design something in Peru. More so, how do we take care of value chain development? What must we do, specifics in the value chain development, so that more dividends will accrue to the country? I think when you couple the 2 questions, this is what they're asking for.
Right. So think about diamond, right? There was a time that Ghana was known as an exporter of diamond, and we all knew Equatia to be in the storehouse of diamonds for Ghana. But here's the thing, next year, Ghana will make about $1 million in diamonds. The revenue has come down every year. The only difference that Botswana has gotten over Ghana is that, De Beers, as a private company, was able to strike a very lucrative deal where it basically invested heavily in Botswana's diamond mines, and because it has the technology, was able to also employ a lot of their citizens. So I keep coming back to this. From the value chain, the stuff that we have to invest in is just not the money. It's also the technical expertise that has to be there. But there's no other place that you can do it more effectively than actually creating the incentives for local companies to actually rise up. Often at times, actually have the expertise, to really, actually Anglo Gold, Ashanti. What you notice is that before they came to Ghana, Obuasi Mines was one of the highest costs, and they brought in all kinds of technology. They employed a lot of people, and they quickly found out that they could actually do a lot of the investments also to unlock value. So my point is, let's not just think about just putting money from the government. The government could provide the platform, but when in the end, we have to think about how do we get the environment such that local companies could either team up with external companies and create indigenous companies that could employ a lot more people, be more focused on creating value outside of Ghana. So that's what I would say. I mean, you can't just put money into the current companies, right? Just so they can employ people. Yeah, they can employ people, but they are not Ghanaian companies. So to me, I think I don't want to underestimate just the potential of the private sector to really become an engine that changes the outcome for us on this one.
Thank you. So all put together, and we should be nearing the end soon. If there are any questions here, I'll take it in the auditorium. But all put together, when it's all said and done, and I'm going to start with you, Kwabena, because you spoke last from the first round. Where are we? Do we monetize? Should we go for it? How bold should we be? is this what we need as a country?
My off-the-head answer is yes, and I'll tell you why. There are 4 key points, and again, I must come from the resource governance aspect. There are 4 key points in managing your resource well. One is to make sure that you know what value you have. Is to make sure that you invest it well, and then make sure that it is equitably spread. We are not doing the investing, obviously, or wouldn't be where we are. And as Henry has said, it's got to be in investing in local capacity, in investing in local champions. They would make sure that the industry grows and serves as a catalyst for other people, other locals. If in this system where we're having foreign companies run our industries and take away most of it and just leave 10%, it's going to continue forever. It's not going to be.
So the investment must come through monetization. And when we monetize, and so far we haven't done any monetization at all.
We have done some aspect of it. That's all from corporate social responsibility and stuff that's happened.
What the companies themselves have proffered to us.
We need to make them understand that maybe put in some hard laws that will make sure that they add to these things that we want to do. Build the MIFs, build the local structures, as I've all said. That will make sure that we turn this economy around with our gold money.
Carl?
Yeah, I think our destiny is in our own hands, okay? When you go to South Africa and you go to Santin, you see how Santin is developed. You come to Ghana, go to Obuasi, and you see the difference is so clear. What have they done right, and what are we not doing right? So for me, it's a good thing to do, regardless of how it's perceived. It's a good thing to do, except that the misconceptions around it, the issues people have raised needs to be addressed. And of course, they are genuine. You don't have it all. And for that matter, if people say, we want this to be evaluated in this way, it's important you listen and you apply. So for me, it's a good thing to do. Getting an SPV in place to handle mineral royalties is the way to go. Indeed, if you want to take off a lot of investment to support the local mining industry, this is a way to fund them. As I indicated in my presentation, our mineral royalty is just less than 1%, 1 million. So it tells you that a lot is at stake. We have not taken advantage and the benefit thereof. Thank you.
So by all means, take advantage, monetize, invest in the value chain, and turn Obuasi into something.
You can put it that way.
Well, Hene, I'll give you the last word. So let's look at some quasi-comparables. I think he's talking. Let's look at some quasi-comparables. So Ghana, we have not invested at all, not monetized at all. But Aramco, for example, in Saudi Arabia, all the money from there is going into some other incredible investments platforms. The Qataris have a similar thing. The one everybody points to with a lot of excitement is the sovereign fund of Norway. Do you see forward that Ghana could use the mineral resources through monetization to become like Norway, for example, or to become like the Qataris who have investments globally?
Well, I would say not yet, because those are pure sovereign wealth funds. They have different mandates than what we've created. But this is what I would say. On the question of do we monetize or not monetize, right? The risk is if we do not come up with a plan and estimate how much it's going to cost to take that industry from point A to point B, and we do monetize and there's not enough money, then we'll be screwed. So my advice is basically we sure should take a look at the possibility of drawing up a plan that basically says, okay, here is the baseline. This is where we are today. In 5 years, in 7 years, in 4 years, we want to be at this point where maybe Takwa becomes an end user commerce center. Accra becomes, there will be a gold exchange. There will be 3 gold companies, or there will be this, 3 this. And then we estimate, okay, it's going to cost about $200 billion. And then we turn around and say, okay, out of the monetization, if we were to actually take payment for all the royalties we have, what will be the gap left? If it's not enough, if all of this is 1% of where we want to get to, then it doesn't matter whether you monetize or you're not monetized. You're not going to be able to pay for wherever you want to get to, right? So to me, I think the critical piece is for the government to actually work with the MEF to really establish the baseline and the plan and how much it will cost. And then decide based on that, then you can say, okay, when I monetize some of these revenues, it will take this portion and then draw up a proper plan. Otherwise, we will sort of circle. We need to come up with a plan before we actually embark on the road of sort of saying, okay, how much can we get and how much can it pay for? And then the gap, where are we going to get? And that is where, if we know the gap, then the private sector becomes very critical, because government could start off with a royalty company, and then private sector could actually start off by also building on top of it private royalty companies based in Ghana who can actually go outside of Ghana and actually find us more money from somewhere else. You know, I mean, we need more money from somewhere else, right? Other than from ourselves. We can just go to Burkina Faso where royalty companies are doing business and find some money there, right? So to me, I think it's critical to think about coming up with a plan where we want to be, how much it will cost. And then when we do the monetization, we know exactly the gap and what we're looking at funding.
So lay out the plan, cost the plan, and then monetize, or we can walk and chew gum, right? So while we're seeking to monetize, we're also... So it's not one before the other. On the same scale, right?
Yes. And then, you know, if there's a gap, you can turn to the private sector and say, okay, government is doing this, we're going to monetize. There's a delta that's left. The banks, you know, we want you to work with MEF to actually create a fund or whatever, a private fund, whatever. So without a plan, we're going to fail. I think that is the critical thing. If we don't know what we're going to fund and we monetize, then I'm afraid it's going to be a tough journey for us.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody listening to us from everywhere in the world, that is how we'll draw a conclusion on this discussion. I think it's been quite stimulating. Would you agree? A round of applause for our panelists today. Hene Akukwapon, join us from New York. Hene, thank you very much. And bring some of that knowledge home. It's not only in Peru and elsewhere. And don't associated with only the beaches. Come home also. And we have a good coastline here as well. You'll enjoy it. Thank you very much, Hene.
I'll be there next week. You owe me dinner.
MIF will take care of that. Thank you very much, Hene. It's a pleasure speaking to you. Kwame, I keep calling you Kwame because my big brother was. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having
It's been very stimulating. And my takeout from what you said is there are 3 pillars to resource governance. You need to identify where they are, you need to manage them, and you need to invest the resources. And we've done 0 of that for 500 years. That's quite an achievement.
Not done 0.
All right. And then, Carl, thank you for such a presentation and bringing us all into this space. And why have the lights gone off? And thank you very much. So, hello? So yeah, the lights have gone off, but I can still have there's still AC in the room, so I think there must be a technical fault. But thank you so much, everybody who joined us. This has been a brilliant discussion. If you didn't understand the whole concept of the MIF, now I'm sure you're beginning to understand. And as we said in the beginning, this is about moving Ghana forward. It's Project Ghana. It's not partisan, it's not political, it's just what we must do and we have the ability to do. So at this moment, I'm going to call on the Chief Executive of the Mineral Investment Income Investments Fund. He's been listening attentively to all the discussions. We've pushed the issues in different areas. And I'd like to have his closing comments and perhaps to thank all of us for being part of this discussion, despite it being a holiday. So please, a round of applause for Mr. Ba as he approaches the podium, the lectern, to be able to give his final comments. And then we'll go off. Please don't stop. Don't stop. It's a long way to the lectern. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm short of what to say the words. And I believe we have now provoked the general discussion nationwide. Some shortcomings which were identified during the promulgation of the law, I feel we have now started to address them. Especially, you listen to the discussions per our panel, our experts, others who joined. There is a need for us to deepen, especially discussion. It's a novelty, and any novelty, it has its attendant misconceptions. I believe what we started, having provoked this discussion, which our Ministry for Information, very grateful for at least coming to our aid when we of MIF, I'm talking of management and our board, of which we have our chair in our midst, tremendous work, been supportive with regard to when His Excellency gave directive with regard to attending to the various arrangements after the passage of the ancillary agreements, which were to make the main act workable. Yes, our sector minister and the Minister of Finance, we are very grateful to you, and especially the Minister of State, waiting, Honorable Edubuahin, who has been the campaign with regards to this very enterprise. We also appreciate what you have done, how you've been assisting us. We of MIF promise that we've accepted the challenges, especially with the shortcomings and regard to the various education, because this brought some, especially the concession of the whole idea of MIF and its offspring, that is Ejapa, which will be spearheading this SPP enterprise. His Excellency's directive, we started working on it. That is we of MIF, our board, and that of our legal experts from the sector ministry, Ministry of Finance, and the AG, headed by His Honorable Minister, Honorable Odame. He'll be in touch with us, and the coming weeks we see us working assiduously to achieve this noble goal of which Ghana is looking out for. We also promise that there will be many of these series of such fora of which we are going to engage, especially our brothers and sisters who have been in the extractive industry, who are very knowledgeable and could assist. On this note, Mr. Moderator, once again, on behalf of the MIF team, of our board, the sector ministry, and that of the Ministry of Information, we are very grateful and thank all our experts, both outside, those who have been privileged to have graced the occasion with us to address this national concern. We are working per the directive of the President, and we'll be having many such fora. To our brothers and sisters from the Inky fraternity, I'm talking of our journalists, both the print and the media, we are very grateful to appreciate. We are looking up to working with you, take numerous challenges. It's Ghana press. We all need to assist, help on this road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got a few minutes to go off. Let me express my sincere gratitude one more time to our partners who carry this live. Ghana Television, Joy News, TV3, Net2 TV, City TV, Asasi Radio, MX24, and the Facebook page of the Ministry of Information. Gratitude also to everybody who joined us. Before we tune out or you log off, I feel a certain responsibility to just say that Eku Kapon really pricked my mind when he said, we've been doing rent collection for so long. The time has come to move away from rent collection in this our mining space. All our panelists concluded that the time is now to take the bold decisions to rethink how we monetize our incomes from the mine. Papon says, let's have a grand plan, a plan that works everybody into the space. Carl says, let's go for it, let's build consensus, let's change what we have to change. And then Kwabena says, well, we've done so well, but we've invested zero almost in trying to build the value chains that matter. If we did this, we can truly, truly turn Obuasi into Santon. And that's what I'm going away with. We prayed offset the first time, and so I'm sure we can pray again, offset the next time. We're grateful to everybody who joined us. Now the television stations and the radio stations and the Facebook Live can go off. We're really grateful. Let's give everybody who joined us a round of applause. And thank you. This is the time to tune off. Has everybody gone off?